forcing of a Game 6,
right now from
a
winning the
one-point
game,
win.
but also losing KD and Kawhi once again.
I don't think that I can, honestly. I just told the team I didn't know what to say because, on the one hand, I'm so proud of them, just the amazing heart and grit that they showed. And on the other, I'm just devastated for Kevin. And so it's a bizarre feeling that we all have right now. An incredible win and a horrible loss at the same time.
Arash over on the left side here.
Steve, to your left, Arash Madain with Sportsnet. How many times have you seen the Stephen Clay show just take over a game and deliver when it's all on the line?
I've been here 5 years, so I don't know, 100-plus games times 5 years. I've seen it an awful lot. It doesn't happen every night, but it seems to happen most nights. They're amazing. They're amazing competitors, great shooters. Mark Jackson said it years ago. They're the best shooting backcourt of all time. And but maybe what people don't know is how competitive they are, and I thought that showed tonight.
Mark in the front.
Mark Medina, Bay Area News Group. We obviously got some of the information regarding Kevin and Kawhi with his injuries, but is there any new information to report as well?
I believe Bob Myers is going to come in and speak on the health front. I don't really know much. Bob was back there during the game. He'll have more information.
Go ahead.
Anthony Slater with The Athletic. Is there any regrets about bringing Kevin back into the series now that with what happened?
Again, I'm going to leave that to Bob.
Right over here, Dan.
Steve, Dan Weinke with the Los Angeles Times. It looked like DeMarcus was not going to be in the rotation tonight, and then Kevin gets hurt. How critical were those 4 minutes from DeMarcus and kind of getting everybody back into the game after such a shocking thing?
Yeah, I thought DeMarcus was fantastic tonight. He stayed ready. He didn't get the first call, for that second quarter run. We went to Bogut, and then with the injury, we knew we needed his scoring, and he stayed ready and played a brilliant game. So very happy for him, and he's he's been through an awful lot himself over the last year plus with his own injuries. So this was a great night for him individually, and very happy for him.
You see Steve Kerr with the best winning percentage, tied with Dan Issel in NBA history. When facing elimination, they will earn the right for one more game, one more ride in the Oracle, backed by the Bay. Steph Curry, Draymond Green will be joining us a little bit later as we are with you until 1 o'clock Eastern Time. Stephen A. Smith joins us from Toronto. And Stephen A., let's start at the end and work our way back. I was talking with Doris Burke a moment ago. I'm awed by the competitive spirit and the ability for the Warriors to absorb those punches from Kawhi and make those threes. And I'm surprised Kawhi gave it up late. I'm just curious, all that went into those last couple of minutes, what was most interesting or noteworthy to you?
Well, a couple of things were interesting to me. It was interesting to me, obviously, Klay Thompson and Steph Curry stepped up, combining for 3 threes to go on a 9-0 run to overcome a 103-97 deficit with 3:28 left. But I think the most compelling component is that the Toronto Raptors, who seem to be able to amp it up whenever they want to, went the last 3:28 with just 2 points. 3:28 left. You go up 103-97 after a pull-up J from Kawhi Leonard. What happens? 23 seconds later, Nick Nurse, who we've been raving about throughout the postseason, suddenly has brain lock or what. I don't know what the hell it was. I don't know why he called the timeout. It's a team timeout by Toronto. You don't need to call a timeout at that particular moment in time. You see that your offense is flowing. You're taking advantage of Golden State. They seem gassed. They seem worn down. It seemed like Toronto was a bit too physical for them, and they were about to basically have a coronation inside the Scotiabank Arena. And then all of a sudden, you call a timeout. You give Golden State a reason to rest, to catch their breath, to get a reprieve from your onslaught.
Yep.
And lo and behold, Klay Thompson hits a three. Then Steph Curry hits a three. Then Klay Thompson comes back and hits a three. And before you had a chance to sit up there and express a word, you were down 3 points. To me, that was a key pivotal point, particularly when you consider the fact that Nick Nurse, once again, obviously a fantastic coach who's done a fantastic job throughout this postseason, inexplicably calls a timeout and disrupts his own team's rhythm. I think that was the key to this game because they only scored 2 points thereafter, and it was on a goaltending play with a layup from Kyle Lowry with the goaltending against DeMarcus Cousins. You can't make that mistake in Game 5 of an NBA Finals closeout game. Nick Nurse made that mistake, and I think it cost him dearly.
We agree. I asked Doris Burke that very question, and she said Nurse has had a good feel for the pulse of his team, but I'm with you. It felt like a standing 8 for a boxer that was on the ropes that could have been perhaps knocked out, but that doesn't happen. They do get a chance, Stephen A., to go back home, but your sense of Golden State's ability to deal with this loss of Durant, do you believe they have enough to force a 7th game in that building?
I personally don't. I hope I'm wrong. I thought they would win tonight's game, but I got to admit to you, I spent the last 2.5 quarters absolutely positively depressed. Kevin Durant came out, hit all 3 of his threes, hit 3 of his 5 shots, was sitting there and looked like he hadn't lost a beat, lost a step at all. I thought he was on pace to drop 40. That's what I thought he was going to do tonight had he stayed on the court. And to see him go out that way, it was just so devastatingly deflating that it's hard to put into words. If you love the game of basketball, you want to see greatness, and somebody I consider to be the greatest in the game, it was knocked out of it. But give credit to where it's due to a champion showing a champion's heart. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, those boys stepped up. Boogie Cousins showed up tonight to make amends for his no-shows in Oakland, and Draymond Green was absolutely brilliant as well. So you take all of those things into consideration, along with the huge assist on a part of Nick Nurse, and that's why we've got a Game 6. I'm going to take this one game at a time and tell you that the Warriors going back to the Oracle, I can't imagine them losing 3 games at the Oracle in the same series, so I'll go with the Warriors going into Game 6, but the bottom line is Toronto is physical, they're deeper, they look to have Golden State gas, and Nick Nurse let them off the hook.
Stephen A., I appreciate you, man. We'll see you bright and early on First Take. Thank you, sir. Thanks for your time as always.
No problem.
Doris Burke joins us now. And Doris, at all costs, I try to avoid falling into hyperbole, but the competitive will that we just witnessed from these defending champs with Kevin Durant gone, you're in the building. How do you best describe what you witnessed?
Well, the scene in the locker room when Kevin went down was one of almost complete silence, raw emotion. It was a difficult moment for everybody that was back in the locker room, including Bob Myers. That team walked in there. There was a real solemn vibe as the players hit that locker room. And I asked Steve Kerr, how do you deal with this? He said, you just keep going. And They played like champions. Hey, credit Golden State. It wasn't pretty, as Klay just told Ramon. It wasn't pretty in the second half, but the ability of Steph to continue to play through and trust his shot will eventually go. They took 44 shots, Klay and Steph. If they don't have Kevin Durant, which is likely they won't, guess what? They should probably take about 60 in Game 6.
Hey, you live or die with them. I mean, look what they were able to do. Erase that 6-point lead, and Kawhi was just spectacular. I was surprised by a timeout there. Maybe they were exhausted, but it felt like all the momentum in the entire nation was behind them. Were you surprised by that, Doris?
A little bit I was, but you have to remember, I mean, this is a team that has done things unusually all year long with Nick Nurse, and I think he's got an incredible sense of the pulse of his team.
Right.
But let's amen to that point about Kawhi Leonard, because that 10 straight points he ripped off to give them the lead, first time all series that a lead had changed in the fourth quarter, he was absolutely incredible. And I can't wait for Game 6 if it's as good as this one is.
I'm with you. Look, it feels just given the run in that building. It shouldn't have ended the way it would have ended with a blowout loss. I'm also just surprised that Kawhi didn't have the ball in his hands late. Were you?
You know what? I was surprised he gave it up. I think he's got the handle and the strength, but
Right.
I don't know if he was thinking clock and he might be able to get it back. The one thing, once he gave it up, I didn't see, and I'm trying to think back to the play, did he give it up and cut back to get it? Ball reversed sides of the floor so quickly. But you're right. I mean, the one thing you're thinking is you want Kawhi to have that shot. No question about it.
Yeah, it went Van Vliet wing and then Lowry corner, and at that point the clock is not their friend. Just one big picture thought. Again, you'd know so well having been around them. The deflation of Durant, understandable, but now you have the time to take a deep breath, go back home, take inventory of who you have. How likely, Doris, is it, do you think, you're standing in that same building again for a 7th game on Sunday?
I think it's possible, but I do believe that the Toronto Raptors will walk into Oracle Arena having the knowledge that they took 2 from them. And I heard that Kawhi, when they won Game 3, Nick Nurse said, you know, on the way there, let's get 1, and he used a little bit of colorful language and said, blank that, let's get 2. So I don't think Kawhi's going there with any intention of giving up a Game 6. Listen, if you're the Raptors, you still, to me, without Kevin Durant, now have more talent, more depth. You can be problematic with the defense you've played. And how do you score from the other spots on the floor? You saw in the first quarter how Kevin Durant changes that dynamic, how much easier it was for Clay and Steph. The reality is the same challenges face the Warriors, physical and mental fatigue, and then who is going to score outside of those 2 guys?
I totally agree with that. I'm always moved by the competitive fire of champs, and those haymakers that those fellas threw there late to earn that 6th game was something to see. Doris, thank you as always.
Thank you, Scott.
They were expecting a party. They were hoping for a party there in Toronto, but obviously that's not what they got. Now, actually, they'd be more than happy to celebrate a win out in Oakland, but perhaps this series comes back